What is happening, guys? Ari here with Boston Automotive Consulting, and today I want to discuss the 7 ways car leasing can be super confusing if you're going into the dealership and trying to negotiate and you're caught off guard with information that doesn't really make all that much sense. And before I dive right in, if you're logging onto one of my videos for the very first time, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel because I give away a ton of super valuable content that's both vehicle specific and some of these more general videos that I do regarding car leasing and buying altogether. So, number 1, why 2 cars that are both identical in price can have 2 drastically different car payments. Now, this has a lot to do with how much the car is depreciating over the course of the lease, and that's called the residual value. And sometimes if a car is depreciating more over the course of 3 years, then that's going to also make the lease payment higher on a car that costs the same. Or if the car is harder to sell, the manufacturer will often give a ton of incentives to help sell the car, which will also make the lease payment more attractive. If a car is harder to get or it's a lot more desirable, factor that it's probably going to be a higher lease payment than the car that's a little bit tougher to get off the lot. Number 2, the dealer's discount that he's giving you on the car. So whenever you're leasing out a car, chances are that there's a decent amount in discounts coming, and some of that can be coming from the dealer and some of that can be coming from the manufacturer in the form of lease cash. So you always want to ask, if it's not disclosed to you in a rebate line item or a lease cash line item, what the actual discount is on the car that's coming both from the dealer and from the manufacturer. Because what can happen is that the dealer can take credit for a discount being given from the manufacturer and still sell the car to you at full price. Number 3, miles per year. Guys, it's never a safe idea to take sort of like a verbal estimate for miles per year. Like if I ask a dealer, instead of giving me 10,000 miles per year, give me 12,000, and he says like, yeah, that'll probably be another 25 bucks. It's never safe to do this because the residual of the car is ultimately going to dictate what the actual difference is between 10 and 12. So if a car is depreciating 1% more by going from 10,000 to 12,000 miles a year, what you want to do is multiply the MSRP of your car times 1% and then divide that up by 36 in order to get the difference. So if the actual change in payment was $1,250, but you shook hands over 25, that just put back $450 back into the dealer's pocket because you were okay with a $25 difference per month. Similarly, this whole residual topic. Number 4, a more expensive car is not technically that much more expensive. And what I mean by that is because during a lease, you're only paying for the amount that you're using plus interest plus tax. If, say, the car that you want is $2,000 more than the car that you're working a deal on, technically, say the residual on both cars is 50%, you take that $2,000 that car is more expensive by, and you'd multiply it by 50%. So now you should only be paying for the amount that you're using, which is $1,000 plus interest plus tax. So a $2,000 more expensive car is only going to cost you $1,000 more. Number 5, interest on a lease. Interest is never called APR on a lease. Unless it's Ford or some banks that use APRs, it's always a money factor. And a money factor is basically a bunch of decimals. Anytime you're trying to figure out what a money factor would be as an APR, whenever it's actually disclosed to you, you take the actual money factor they're giving you, like a 0.001, and you'd multiply it by 2,400 to get the equivalent in APR. And what you want to know is this, guys. When you're paying interest on a lease, you're not just paying interest on just the amount that you're using. You're paying interest on both the amount that you're using plus whatever the residual is of the car. It's essentially double the amount of interest. However, what lease companies like to do is, in a lot of cases, is, say for instance, you're paying 3.9% APR on a Toyota Highlander. The money factor that they typically would charge you on a lease would probably equate to about 1.9%. So you've got to be on the lookout for what the APR is if you purchase and what the money factor equivalent would be on the lease to just make sure that you're not overpaying on interest. On the topic of interest, guys, number 6. So say you were quoted a payment by the dealer and then you went to go and wrap up the paperwork and suddenly your lease payment changed, and that all has to do with your credit and what tier of approval you were given by the bank. So every credit score qualifies for a different tier on a lease, just like if you're applying for a loan. So anything above a 720 and you're gonna be given the highest level of approval and the lowest possible payment that that bank can offer you. However, once you go below a 720, and usually banks like to go by a FICO Auto Score 8. If you don't know your FICO Auto Score 8, check the description below where you can actually go and buy your individual 3 bureau credit reports to see your FICO Auto Score 8. Don't go by Credit Karma. Always expect that the advertised lease payment is gonna be given based off of the best credit approval tier. And if you're not a 720 plus, expect the advertised lease payment to change. Now, speaking of the advertised lease payment, guys, last but not least, number 7. Usually when they say $2,000 down, this is not gonna include your fees. And anytime the dealer says plus the fees, all the fees really equate to is the bank acquisition fee, the dealer documentation fee, which is negotiable in a lot of cases, your first payment, registration, and plates. Anything in addition to this, and you may want to question the validity of the actual fee itself, like a nitrogen or tire fee or just any sort of ridiculous sounding fee, and you want to just double check that that's not just some sort of add-on that the dealership is charging. Usually these 4 fees will roughly equate to about $1,500 to $1,700, just really all depending on what your payment amount is. And that's usually why when you go in on the advertised lease special, when they originally asked for, like, let's say $2,000 down, it's $2,000 down plus the fees. So now it's about $3,500 or $4,000 to get you to that advertised lease payment plus tax. And a good rule of thumb, whenever you're not trying to put $2,000 down or $4,000 down, every $1,000 that you put down or take away off of a lease will make a difference of about $30 in your lease payment. So if you were originally being quoted $200 on a lease with $4,000 down and you're trying to subtract the $4,000 down, you divide $4,000 by 36, which gets you to about $112, and you add that to your $200 a month. So guys, I hope that this video maybe armed you a little bit better when you're going in there to negotiate your lease deal for whatever is being thrown at you. Hopefully you're a little bit more prepared now. If you found this information useful and you want to see more of these new car buying and negotiation tip type videos, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.